What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is the part 1 of a story where Issei was the reincarnation of the heavenly demon god. Long ago, thousands of years ago in Japan, was a demon that terrorized the world. He was known as the Demon King of the Far East. An unstoppable force that threatened the entire supernatural world until he eventually was sealed away. But through centuries of planning, someone was able to revive the soul of the Demon King into a human's body, which birthed the return of the demon that all the gods and Satans feared. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more information. Now, let's get into part 1. Issei Haidu, name that while not known by many, was a being that caused such massive destruction and chaos in a short time around 1500 years ago in ancient Japan. Nobody knew where he came from or his origins. Just that he appeared and plagued the country of Japan with his evil. He devoured men, murdered innocent women and children without an ounce of regret or care. The calamity in physical form that threatened the entire safety of the human world and the other realms. He was mighty, so mighty that nobody could stand against him. Whoever tried met a terrifying end in the form of being literally devoured by the man-eating demon. Humans, angels, devils, gods and dragons. It didn't matter to him. Issei devoured them all without a care in the world. Eventually he was hailed as a supreme deity. Those who accepted their inferiority openly worshipped the demon god as their own god and sacrificed whatever they had to please the demon to spare them from his wrath. While nobody knew the demon's name, many started calling him Akuma. Nobody could stand against him. Even those blessed with a sacred gear weren't able to even remotely stand a chance against him. Issei simply didn't care who they were. He devoured them just for the sake of his own amusement. Eventually Issei's hunger grew to the heights of the heavens. The demon rose from the lands of the earth and planned to conquer the heavens above and was almost successful. The gods were indeed stronger, but they couldn't stand a chance against him and soon found themselves devoured by the demon who slowly purged the entirety of Takamagahara from all their gods. Not even the Shinto pillar gods. Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi and Susanoo were able to stop him, and eventually even they were devoured by the calamity known as Issei. In the last moment of defense, the Shinto creator god Izanagi bravely fought against the Demon King, who after a long fought battle, met an unfortunate end as the King of Calamity devoured the creator god. After Izanagi, the older Shinto deities all came and tried to fight Issei, but couldn't defeat him, which left the last deity. Aim no Manakanushi, who was the progenitor of the entire Shinto pantheon, fought and sacrificed himself to free all the gods Issei had previously devoured to finally seal away the demon for good. But the demon didn't die since his body and soul were too strong to be killed. His body was split into various parts along with his weapons that each carried a portion of his power and soul. To later scatter them in shrines to use them to create powerful barriers to protect Japan for the next millennia. The demon corpse and artifacts were heavily sealed in the human world to ensure that nobody could use them for malicious reasons and to protect Japan from other mythologies that might want to start conflict with Japan. But after more than 1500 years, in the middle of the night in Kuo was a young man with short green hair and matching eyes was walking through the empty streets. The woman was walking steadily as she headed towards a shrine temple high up a mountain, as the woman, unbothered by the ominous atmosphere, eventually reached the gate below the small mountain. "Here it is," the woman muttered to herself as she narrowed her eyes before dodging an attack from a spear from an armed guard. "Halt. What are you doing here?" the guard demanded as he readied his spear as a bunch of guards followed suit. The woman looked unfazed as her gloved hands showed a green aura as she prepared to fight. "A demon?" the guard asked as he recognized the aura signature. But the woman said nothing as she dashed at the guard, punching him with her magic-enhanced fist that cracked his skull and sent him flying to a tree, knocked out cold. The other guards tried to attack her, but she dodged all their efforts before knocking them all out unconscious or killing them if they happened to die from her fists. The woman didn't care though as she walked up the stairs and fought off anything that tried to stand in her way. From guards to traps. The woman handled them efficiently before making her way to the top of the mountain and standing right in front of the gate of the temple. After dealing with the guards, the woman let out a sigh as she pulled out a piece of paper before infusing her magic into it, which caused an orange magic to appear as a tanned woman with brown hair came out. "So it's time, Kurumi?" the woman asked as the green-haired woman named Kurumi nodded. "Yes, Lady Kateria." Kurumi nodded as they both entered the temple. Immediately both sensed that something went off and quickly made their way to the center of the temple where a shrine was placed. "That's the seal?" Kateria asked as she inspected the shrine where a strange crystal-like structure was placed. "Yes. That crystal uses the power of whatever it's inside to fuel the barrier around this town. From what I understand, the barrier is to keep others out, but recently this town is occupied by devils who earned the trust of the Shinto gods, which made them alter the effect of the barrier. This however gave me the opportunity to sneak in to come close. But I had to make sure that I had what it takes to break the seal." Kurumi informed as her eyes looked at the crystal with a look of longing and admiration. I see, so you think the power of office is able to break the seal? Kateria asked, but soon both felt more guards approaching. Yes, please use the snake now. There isn't much time anymore. Kurumi requested with urgency as the tan-skinned devil nodded before raising her staff at the crystal, which made a black-colored snake manifest out of it. The snake floated towards the crystal before wrapping itself around it. Moments later the crystal shattered into pieces as what appeared from the crystal was an old bone piece of something. It wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. Like around 5 inches in total in length. Kurumi raised her arms and took hold of the object before turning to Kateria. Let's go. They're coming. Kurumi warned as Kateria nodded and teleported away, leaving the temple desolated with the demonic object missing. Chaos erupted as the guards rushed in only to find nothing there. They sure would have a great time explaining that to the Camus. Scene change, a week later. It has been a while since Kurumi had stolen the bone piece as she was now walking across the streets towards her next destination. It was a decent-size house as she turned to the nameplate of the building. Haidu Residence. Kurumi gave a thin smile as she opened the gate and walked over to the door and pressed the doorbell. Humming. A male voice spoke from the other side as the door soon opened revealing a man in his mid-20s. Ah, Dr. Toho. Please come in. The man welcomed Kurumi who nodded as she took her shoes off. Thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Haidu. Kurumi politely thanked him as the man nodded and guided him inside. My wife is in the bedroom. Her condition is getting worse. I was hoping that you could do something. Goro Haidu informed as Kurumi emotionlessly followed him. I'll try to the best of my abilities. Kurumi replied as they both entered the bedroom where a very much looking pregnant Miki Haidu was laying on the bed. Hey Kurumi-san. Miki uttered in pain as she was covered in sweat. Kurumi gave a small nod as she walked over and took something out of her bag. Your condition is getting worse it seems. But I might have the solution. Kurumi showed a vial containing a red-colored liquid. This is a special medicine made from a unique animal. It is proven to have been able to heal someone from very deadly illnesses. It might work on yours. Kurumi informed before handing the vial to Miki who without hesitation opened it and drank the liquid. Kurumi watched with interest as Miki's heartbeat and breathing became stable again. The pregnant human let out a comfortable sigh as she laid back down on her bed. Thank you Kurumi, I feel much better now. Miki thanked as she quickly fell asleep. Kurumi nodded before turning to Goro. By the way Mr. Haidu. Have you already decided on the name yet of the child? Kurumi asked out of curiosity as Goro shook his head. No, not really. I was too worried with my wife being sick that I haven't given much thought yet. Goro replied. Kurumi nodded as she grabbed her bag and headed her way out of the room. Well, if you can't come up with a name. The name of the person who gave me this medicine was Issei, just a small idea that you might want to think about. Kurumi informed before stepping out the room and leaving the house. Finally, after all these years, Master Issei will finally return to me. Kurumi thought before disappearing in the afternoon as the seeds of chaos just have been planted. 18 years later. A young boy named Issei Haidu was on his date with Yuma Amano, a strange girl he just recently met to ask him on a date and become his boyfriend. Issei, who was a hopeless virgin, accepted the offer without a second to waste, and guess what? The god is fucking killed. Now laying on his back in a puddle of his own blood. Issei was looking at the orange sky as the life was fading out of his eyes. Am I really going to die like this? I just wanted to touch some boobs, Issei hopelessly thought as he didn't have the strength in his body to even move. Only if I was stronger and smarter I could have gotten myself a nice girlfriend. What a fool I was. His thoughts kept on rambling until his eyes slowly started close forever. I just wanted to become someone better than myself. With that final thought, Issei laid there dead. No sign of life as the body kept on leaking blood on the cold floor. But suddenly a shift occurred in the air, which made all the crows fly away and started shrieking as the blood that was pouring out of Issei's body slowly disappeared as the hole in his gut that he received from his date started to close up. His brown hair grew a few shades darker as suddenly a twitch of his finger appeared. Slowly Issei opened his eyes as the dark brown eyes were replaced by a soul-piercing crimson pair, along with a vertical slit like a cat's or a dragon's. Pushing his body of the hard floor. Issei stood back up on his legs as he kept on blinking for a couple of times as the young man grasped his hair and body and clenched them tightly. His face was that of shock which soon turned into one of a twisted ecstasy. Ha ha, Issei maniacal laughter roared through the park as the orange sky was becoming darker and darker by the moment as the moon weakly shined at the young man standing in the middle of the park. Finally. I'm back in human flesh, Issei exclaimed with sadistic joy as he looked at the fountain before jumping on the tip and aiming his body at the moon. I never have been so excited. Where are the humans? The woman Issei jumped down and twirled around with glee.
It will be a Calamity. The Calamity just have been reborn. Issei Haidu, the physical manifestation of a calamity, stood back on his feet after more than thousands of years sealed away on a fountain in the park where he just had been reborn. It will be a Calamity, Issei said happily to himself as he spread his arms and took a deep inhale of fresh air. So many humans running amongst each other like maggots, there are even bats and crows nearby. They would make a great meal to celebrate my official return. 4. Issei laughed to the sky as he jumped down from the fountain top before looking at the place where the boy that he took the body over just died. Being a bit interested in what happened, Issei looked through the boy's entire life in a few seconds before his face turned into one of disgust. Dear Kami, that brat was utterly pathetic. But hey, it was because of his foolishness I finally came back. So there was a plus side to him, I guess. Issei said to himself before recalling something from the memories. Taking out a piece of paper the other Issei received right before the date, Issei looked at the symbol of the paper. The summoning circle. Isn't that from Runia's family? Issei asked himself before shrugging before shoving the paper back into his pocket. What to do? Kill some humans? No, that's boring. Aha. That crow that killed the brat, I must thank her for her service. In a flash, Issei seemed to completely disappear in the night, ready to create a massacre. Inside of the abandoned church, Rainer has just arrived after killing her date and was ready to report. Entering the building, her fellow companions were all waiting for her. Took you a while, Rainer. Finally killed the boy. The blue-haired fallen angel that looked that she just was done with her shift in the soaplands, asked a black-haired fallen angel who scoffed. Of course. That boy was too easy to lure and now his corpse are feeding the crows. Rainer replied with a smug tone as her allies nodded, but all froze as a sudden wave of malice ran through them as a voice spoke to them. I think you have it from my dear Yuma. It will be the crows' corpses that will be feeding me. All fallen angels turned to the altar within the church and saw Issei sitting legs crossed with an arrogant grin on his face. How are you alive? Rainer asked, confused as she created a light spear and readied herself to throw it. When you kill someone, make sure that they stay dead. But that tip will be useless since all of you are gonna die right here. Issei exclaimed before jumping off the altar and slowly walking over to the terrified murder of crows who all readied their light spears. They each threw at him, making Issei grin as without even stopping his walk. The light spears all shattered the moment they reached him, which made them all shocked to their core. What? All the fallen angels uttered in disbelief as Issei just smirked before disappearing. The only male of the group was first as Issei grabbed him by the throat and swung him across the entire church. The speed Issei moved was undetectable by any of the fallen angels, as the male fallen angel was suspended in the air before Issei came behind him and ripped his head off his body before landing back on the ground with the fallen angel's head in his hand. The body of the fallen still flew across the church and eventually crashed into some dusty furniture. Sorry, but I'm not into guys. Issei casually informed before his hand seemed to completely absorb the head of the dead fallen angel before he turned around and faced the three frightened girls who all decided to make a run for it. But before they could even take a step, blood splattered all over the ground as both Rainer and Kalawarna turned back around and saw their blonde companion middled head flying in the air while her body was torn to literal shreds as only blood and bits of her were still visible. Sorry for that. But I can't stand those bragging little girls that have a stick up their ass. Now seeing that these two are dead now. What do with you two? Issei asked with a sinister smile before slowly walking towards them. The sheer malice of Issei's presence prevented both from escaping as both just fell on their knees with their head low to the ground, desperately begging for mercy. DP, please Issei. Please spare me. I'll do anything. I let you have sex with my body. Just please don't kill me. Rainer begged as Issei stood now in front of them. Kalawarna didn't say anything. Her body refused to move without being told by the literal demon in front of them. Issei looked in between the pair. His crimson eyes looking at them for a moment before thinking. Both have a nice body. I think I keep one as a pet, let's see, Issei thought before grinning. I see, then raise your head, Rainer. Rainer obeyed as she sat back up and looked Issei in the eyes. Issei slowly walked over and leaned down. Issei brought his face forwards as Rainer recognized what he was planning to do. Having no choice but to accept, Rainer brought her face closer to his and started kissing him. They started kissing for a moment before Issei lifted Rainer back up her feet and wrapping his arms around her body. Rainer moaned at Issei's touch but soon felt something off. Slowly Issei's eyes opened as his mouth revealed a bunch of razor-sharp teeth as his face and mouth expanded to an inhumane degree before Issei literally bit into Rainer's face. Rainer tried to scream while struggling into Issei's grasp. But the young man didn't let go as Rainer helplessly struggled in Issei's arms before Issei bit through her skull, which ended her life. Kalawarna didn't dare to look up and just felt the blood that splattered out of Rainer's body fall onto her hair and floor.
Her body kept shaking as breathing became harder for her. Slowly Issei ate Rainer's body, completely leaving nothing apart from blood behind. Issei's face returned back to normal as Issei let out a burp as a black feather came out of his mouth. Damn. I forgot eating birds and crows raw leaves feathers in my mouth. Should've Kurumi cooked you first. Issei said before tossing the feather away and looked down at the last fallen angel. Issei raised an eyebrow as Kalawarna kept on shaking in fear. Crouching down, Issei pulled her up by the hair and smirked at her horrifying face. Aren't you gonna beg for your life? Kalawarna fearfully shook her head as she answered with tears rolling down her face. I won't, that would be pointless, she replied, making Issei laugh. Ahaha, indeed, that would be indeed pointless. Those that beg for mercy after a battle are the ones that disgust me the most. Yuma or whatever her name was had it coming after looking down at me first when I wasn't in control of my body. Such maggots irritates me the most. But you accepted your inferiority and you're waiting for a quick and painless death, aren't you? Issei asked, making Kalawarna slowly nod her head. Yes, Kalawarna accepted her fate and closed her eyes, hoping that it will be over soon. Well, killing you would be a waste. Issei honestly replied before standing up, which forced Kalawarna to stand back up as well. Issei looked at her with a grin. I made up my mind. I think I'll keep you as my pet. Issei stated, shocking. Kalawarna didn't believe what she was hearing, but knowing that this might be her only chance to survive, she accepted her new role. I understand, Master Issei. Kalawarna submissively replied, making Issei smile. And a fast learner too. You will do well under me. I don't know where Kurumi is off to, most likely pulling the strings behind the scene and being the puppet master of my return. Now let's go. You'll be serving me from now on. Issei declared as he grasped Kalawarna by her ass before vanishing in the church. Back to the Haidu residence. Issei uncaringly walked inside of the building with Kalawarna right behind him. Immediately his father noticed him. Hey sport, how was your date? Goru asked from the couch as he failed to notice Kalawarna behind Issei. Issei walked in the living room as his mother wasn't present. I had better. Issei casually replied before looking his father in the eyes as Goru's head suddenly exploded from his body, painting the walls with blood and bits of flesh. Fucking disgrace of a sperm. I can't believe I have such pathetic descendants. Issei cursed to himself before placing his hand on Goru's decapitated body, which caused the body to turn into a light blue colored gem before Issei ingested it in his own mouth. Ugh, forgot how disgusting absorbing these monkeys are. Taste like a cloth to wipe shit and vomit. Fucking disgusting. Right when Issei said that, his mother came out of her room and walked down the stairs. Goru, what was that sound? Miki asked as she arrived down the stairs and looked horrified at her son and the strange woman with the walls covered in blood. Miki was about to scream, but her body suddenly froze as Issei appeared before her and looked at his mother with disgust. You're uglier than what my own mother used to look like. All shriveled up and grey like overdated flesh. Your body isn't worth absorbing, but your soul might be useful. Issei said before making his mother's body explode as the entire living room was painted with blood. But Issei wasn't bothered and just looked at the small glowing white sphere in his hand. Issei grabbed the sphere and put it in his mouth before swallowing. Forgot that souls taste like a cloud. Issei said as he looked back at Kalawarna. Clean all of this up while I'm gonna take a bath, so don't bother me. When you're done, make some dinner for me. Human good or human flesh, it don't matter. Just make something that you think will taste good. But if you fail to satisfy me, you'll become my next meal. Issei warned before heading upstairs, leaving a scared Kalawarna who quickly started cleaning up the house. Somewhere else. Inside of a dark and ominous room, the three leaders of the old Satan faction along with Rizavum Livan Lucifer and Euclid Lucifuge were all present as Kurumi Toho was in the room as well, while projecting a map of Japan that showed all different kind of locations. All of these are the locations of the shrines that keep one of the corpse parts and artifacts of the King of Calamity. If you desire to retake the underworld or gain more power for yourself. The corpse part that I found with Kateria almost 2 decades ago has already been used by a test subject that is currently running wild in Kuo. Now this is your chance to obtain the parts for yourselves and retake the underworld. Kurumi informed as all the leaders nodded as they all decided to go hunting for the parts of Issei Haidu. Now with those fools doing the dirty work, I can finally reunite with my master. Kurumi thought as she recently had sensed her master's return in the human world. So how is her chance to set things in motion? I can't wait to serve you again, my master. Laying inside of the bathtub of his home, Issei Haidu let out a comfortable sigh as the blood on his body drifted in the bathtub while Issei looked at his new human body. I'm barely at 1% of my total power. It appears that Kurumi didn't feed this body one of my parts. Odd. Then she must be carrying my part with her. Issei then mused as he laid back before wondering. My body is fully human again with my powers being at the bare minimum. I can't access my demonic energy or any of my abilities and techniques apart from Devour. I can be reckless at the moment, and trying to regain it through eating others will take too much time. Then I guess I'll let Kurumi handle looking and finding for my other parts, before giving them to me. Issei then stepped out of the tub before drying himself with a towel and inspecting himself in the mirror. And this body was lacking in every department. Most certainly this thing. Issei said as he used what limited power he had to change his body a bit. He grew a few inches and his body became more refined with muscle. He gained a six-pack along with a good chunk of muscle like a pro swimmer's. He also made his nails sharper and turned them black, along with some strange black tattoos that spread on his chest, back and arms. And lastly little Issei also gained a growth spurt. After drying himself and taking a bathrobe from his father, Issei walked back down and saw that the entire living room has been cleaned up by his newest servant. Pleased Issei walked over to the table and saw that there was variety in food that was ready for him. Not bad. Issei complimented as he sat down and took a bite of some of the well-made rice and tempura. Kalwarna walked back in the living room wearing an apron and placed a bottle of soju. Here, master. Kalwarna filled a cup with the soju before handing it to Issei who accepted it and drank it in one gulp. I'm good. Issei mused as he continued eating and drinking for a few minutes until his plate was empty. Very good. It has been a while since I enjoyed some good human food. Almost forgot the taste of what regular food tastes like. Issei said out loud as Kalwarna nodded. It pleases me you enjoyed it. Kalwarna let out a breath of relief. It appears she will live another day. I can tell something on your mind. You are curious of who I am, right? Issei knowingly asked as he stood up and sat down on the couch and gestured for Kalwarna to follow him and sit next to him. Issei brought Kalwarna's head on his lap and started playing with her hair like a cat. I'm in a good mood right now. So ask me what you want to know. Kalwarna gulped as she calmed her nerves. Who are you exactly? From what our scouts told us. You were just a regular human that carried a sacred gear. Kalwarna asked hoping not to anger her master who silently kept playing with her hair before looking up and letting out a sigh. Well I'm not lying of who I am. I'm Issei Haidu. But an Issei Haidu of the past. This body was previously in possession of the boy also named Issei Haidu, which was the brat Rainer killed. I'm simply the soul of the past Issei Haidu who took over the current Issei Haidu's body after his death. Issei explained as he looked down at Kalwarna. She could see half of Issei's face change to that of the brown-eyed boy Rainer was sent to kill. So the Issei Haidu that Rainer killed is still inside of you like a prisoner, or did he actually die? Kalwarna asked making Issei shake his head. Neither. He isn't dead, nor he is a prisoner. This will sound confusing to you, since you most likely don't understand the concept of souls much. But in simpler terms. When the brat was born I who was just a small slither of a soul manifested with the brat soul. Over the years the brat lived his life. That little slither of my soul slowly fed on the brat soul without anybody noticing. Slowly I started to regain my consciousness, but I didn't have the strength to take over the boy's body. But thanks to a miracle which was Rainer. She not only killed the boy, but also broke his heart. Which in turn, greatly weakened his will. So using that chance while he was laying dead. I slowly started to devour the rest of his soul completely thanks to him not having the will to fight anymore. This made me able to fully manifest my consciousness back and take over the boy's dead body. To be more precise, the brat was like sustenance that helped me be reborn, and now his soul is gone. Issei explained before letting out a long sigh. Kalwarna started to understand, but that rose the obvious question. But then who are you, Issei Haidu of the past? Kalwarna asked making Issei look down again before grinning maliciously. I'll let you guess. Ever heard of the Demon King of the Far East? Issei asked making Kalwarna think. After a couple of seconds, bells started to ring in her head as she recalled a book she once read about a demon that almost devoured the heavens themselves. A demonic deity that rose to beyond divinity itself. The demon that rose from the depths of hell all the way to the highest of the heavens, the legendary demon god Akuma. You mean demon god Akuma? Kalwarna asked shakily making Issei chuckle at a reaction and calmed her down by pressing his finger on her forehead. Yes. I am him. Issei confirmed. Then you're the being that almost devoured all of the Shinto gods more than 1,000 years ago? She asked making Issei nod before giving an annoyed look. I would have if it wasn't for that punk aim no Manakanushi sacrificing his body and soul to revive all the gods I devoured before him in my stomach. Then all these gods tried to escape through my stomach, which made me forced to puke them all out, leaving me very vulnerable, which gave the change to Izanagi to slice me into bits with his sword. But I was smart and split my soul and power amongst my sliced off limbs and weapons which allowed me to transcend death. Issei explained with a grin before looking back up at the ceiling. But now with that stupid punk gone. They won't be able to pull one like that again. So when I get my full power back, I'll finally devour the heavens and claim the throne as the supreme demon god. Issei declared making Kalwarna look in awe. However, another question rose as she couldn't help but wonder about something. Were you almost a demon? There were no records that explained your origin. Calawarna asked softly. Issei just raised an eyebrow before letting out another sigh. I wasn't a demon when I was born. I was once a human by the name Issei Haidu. You must have guessed by now, but this body I'm in and the father of this brat are actually my descendant when I was a human. Long ago, more than 1500 years ago. I was once heir to the Haidu clan. The Haidu clan were one or many that sought power, lands and riches. My family were in constant conflict amongst other families. I had a ton of brothers and sisters. But they all died in battle, assassination or through suicide. I was the only one that kept fighting and survived each battle. Eventually, when I was a young adult, my father died and I became head of the Haidu clan. I had a ton of wives. I don't remember the exact count, but I think it was more than 50. Maybe even more. But that's not important. I had a ton of kids and lived a quite privileged life. Issei stopped as he looked straight with his crimson eyes narrowing a bit. But one fateful day I was abducted by an enemy clan. I was chained in their basement and tortured for months. I was forced to cannibalize other prisoners to prevent myself dying from starvation. They even forced me to kill and eat my own wives and kids, just for their own amusement. Eventually I lost all sense of humanity and in my deepest moments of despair, summoned a devil to the human world. It was a woman that offered me the chance to fight against everybody. In return for that chance I will have to help her in the future, which I assume is the current era. But back to me, the devil woman left me a black spider lily which I ate without thinking for a moment of hesitation. I slowly evolved from a weak human to a power-hungry demon without mercy and care. I killed everybody that stood in my way. Men, women, children, my own blood and flesh. I destroyed by rival clans and my own. They were nothing to me anymore, as nothing of my past life was important to me. What I truly care for is myself and my own desire. From that point I kept conquering territories and slowly purged Japan of any life that existed. Normal or supernatural, I killed and devoured them without exception. Yaokais, angels, fallen angels, devils and even gods and dragons. I killed and devoured them without stop. Eventually I reached a level unlike any other. I became the strongest on earth and continuously destroyed my opponents. No matter who they were. Even the sacred gear users weren't much of a challenge. At some point, I wanted to take my goals to the higher level and challenge the heavens themselves. I fight and conquered all the gods I came across. Even the pillar gods were no issue. Hell, even the creation god Izanagi felt victim to my power and I devoured him as well. But it came to an end when I went after the ancient deities before Izanagi. Devouring each deity after the other. Eventually I came across the man where it all began, Aim no Manakanushi. It was my toughest fight and I really had to try against that man. But eventually, after perhaps months of fighting, I finally was able to weaken him to the point that I could have devoured him. But he selflessly sacrificed himself to somehow revive all the gods and deities that I previously had devoured in my stomach, which forced me to vomit them all out. And using that chance, Izanagi sliced me into pieces, but like I said before, I saved myself by splitting my soul and power amongst my corpse and weapons. Which bring me all the way back here. 1500 years later, where my faithful servant from back of the day find a way to reincarnate me into my descendant's body using a fraction of my soul. Crazy story, right? Issei asked as Calawarna just nodded as she took the entire story in. After a minute she couldn't help but smile as she looked back at her master. So you're planning to finish what you started from all that time ago? She asked, making Issei nod. Yes. And you'll be by my side like a good servant. Issei answered before lifting her up and making her sit on his lap. You'll be mine forever, Issei stated before kissing Calawarna on the mouth, which made the fallen angel kiss him back with full force as the two started their intent lovemaking. Somewhere else, the loyal maid of Issei Haidu suddenly felt a wave of dread wash over her as she had an unpleasant feeling all of a sudden. I feel something is off, she thought to herself before resuming her work. After Issei's teamy night with Calawarna, Issei woke up from the smell of delicious food being prepared for him. Brining himself to stand up, Issei made his way to the table and sat down. Calawarna placed a cup of coffee on the table, which Issei gladly took. My master, what are your plans for today? Calawarna asked, making Issei swallow his coffee before answering. Honestly, it depends. I'm tempted to kill these devils that are lingering around this town. They are high-ranking devils in status if I'm not wrong. So that would attract the underworld to me. I can't really have that now with my power at its minimum. So we'll have to stay low and play along. I'm not going to that human school. I figure something out with the devils when they come and ask questions. Issei answered as he took another sip of his coffee. Understood. But I should also inform about the other reason we were here. Calawarna began as Issei interrupted her. You mean the excommunicated holy maiden with that healing sacred gear, right? Personally, I don't see any use for her. Her sacred gear is a basic healing technique, with it being able to affect any race. I can teach you healing magic 10 times more effective than that. Issei spoke boredly, making Calawarna nod, as she wasn't surprised that her master had an ability superior than a rare kind of sacred gear. But the idea of being able to learn such magic did intrigue her. "You're willing to learn me that, my master?" she asked, making Issei nod. "Yeah. But first I need more of my power back. After that I'll have to transform you into a demon like myself back in the day. It makes teaching that kind of magic much easier," Issei replied as he finished his cup. Calawarna nodded as she took the cup and refilled it. "So what should we do with the nun?" Calawarna asked. Issei rested his head on his fist before thinking. "From what I can tell from Rainer's memories, the nun is naive and easy to manipulate. Being sheltered in a church with no actual social life makes her an easy target. I can leave her to the devils here. But perhaps I can use her to see how far I can push the soul. Let's give it a try," Issei thought before looking back at Calawarna. "Maybe I can make something useful out of her. Apart from healing, she isn't good in any form of magic or something else from what I get. I think I'll use her as a test project to see what I can make of her. I want you to go back to that church and clean things up. Also, I will go find Kurumi to obtain some of my powers back. If things go well, you and that nun might prove to become useful to me in the future. So go and stay out of trouble," Issei ordered, making Calawarna shocked before nodding and teleporting away. Issei stayed by the table for a moment before thinking. "So first I need to get my body part back. Kurumi surely has one, but about the rest that will be difficult. Second is the nun. She is supposed to arrive in this town one of these days. I have to make sure to find her before the devils do. And lastly, way about the devils. As much I want to kill them, bringing attention to myself so early wouldn't be a good move," Issei thought to himself before standing up. "Ah, fuck it. Let's kill some people." Issei then disappeared from his house and reappeared somewhere in an old dusty building where he felt an odd demonic energy signature. Walking in the building without any care, Issei appeared in the house without even having to open the door as he watched a devil happily feasting onto a poor human woman that looked to have been raped as well, judging from her shattered clothes. "Having fun there?" Issei asked with a grin as he walked towards the devil, who turned to him. "Back off, punk. She's my meal." The devil shrieked, which made Issei grin as he looked at him and his breakfast with a smirk. "Trust me, friend. She doesn't look appetizing to me in the first place. But you, on the other hand, would make a good snack." Issei's voice scared the devil, who stood up and fired a demonic energy blast at Issei, who just kept grinning as the blast dispersed before it can even touch him. What?" the devil yelled as Issei just chuckled. "Bukuku, a simple attack of demonic energy won't be able to kill anyone, dear. You have to polish it more before you use it, like this." Right when Issei said that, the devil suddenly had a giant hole in his chest, which surprised him as Issei didn't even had moved at all. He looked down at chest in disbelief as he failed to notice Issei coming close to him and placing his hand on his shoulder. The devil couldn't even utter a word anymore as his body was suddenly warped into a small dark red gem. Issei took the gem into his mouth before swallowing and letting out a sigh. However, Issei suddenly felt a pain in his stomach, which made him barf back up what looked to be some kind of chess piece. "The fuck is that?" Issei asked as he inspected the little bishop piece. He can tell that it contained demonic energy along with a strange magical complex formula. Being curious, Issei raised the bishop piece to his mouth and focused his energy into his teeth and bit through the bishop piece before turning it into bits and swallowing it. After a moment, Issei opened his eyes as he absorbed the magic contained in the crystal. A reincarnation magic spell along with an enslavement spell. Interesting. Maybe I can use that for Calawarna. I should test that out, Issei said as he then used a magic circle to call someone. He previously didn't have enough magic energy to do this. But now, thanks to that devil, he had enough to make a call to an important person. "Hello?" A female voice answered the call. "Hello, Kurumi, I hope you haven't forgotten my voice," Issei replied, making the woman on the other side of the call let out a happy sigh. "I can't never forget your voice, master. I've missed you," Kurumi stated, making Issei chuckle. "I know you have, my Kurumi. But I assume you already know why I call you," Issei said, making the maid nod. "Yes, I'll be at your side this instant," Kurumi replied before cutting off the call. Issei didn't have to wait long as a green magic circle appeared beside him and Kurumi appeared out of it. "Good to see you, my dear." Issei grinned as the maid went on a knee with a smile. "I'm honored to be back by your side." Kurumi's voice was filled with admiration as Issei mentioned for her to stand back up. "Good. You haven't changed when it came to your loyalty." "That's good," Issei said as he walked up to her. Not wasting a single moment, Issei kissed her on the lips, which the maid happily returned. However, Issei kept it short as he broke the kiss, much to the maid's disappointment. "Not yet. We have a lot of important matters to talk about. Such as my body parts." Issei inquired, which made Kurumi nod as she took out a box and revealed the old bone. One of your pieces, my master. It was the one here found it in Kuo. Kurumi informed, making Issei nod as he took the bone. It was one of my horns back in the day. Well, at least it is one of the entire puzzle. Issei said as he ate his own horn before swallowing it. For a moment nothing happened as Issei's crimson eyes just glowed for a bit as Issei let out a wild grin. Well, at least it is 5% restored. Any process on the other pieces? Kurumi nodded. I've been able to convince the old Satan faction and the super devil Rizavum Live and Lucifer to hunt down for your body and weapons to help them with their own plans. However, currently all the other parts are heavily guarded thanks to me stealing this part 18 years ago. It would take a lot of effort to steal them all back. Kurumi informed as Issei nodded before grinning. That's no issue. When the time comes for the devils to take my parts, I will help them by disrupting the barriers. Just now I sensed a connection with all my parts that contains my soul. I can even control them to a degree. So when these fools are ready, I will disrupt all the barriers in Japan so they can steal the parts for me. Issei revealed, surprising Kurumi, who smiled in return. Marvelous idea. I will inform the leaders about the development. I inform you when they are ready. You can dispel the barriers. This will certainly cause a huge conflict. Kurumi warned. Well, sometimes we have to take the risk. Anyhow, I will be busy with a side project for the next couple of days. Call me when you need me for those barriers. Also, don't tell them that I'm back. I don't want to be bothered by these annoying bats for now. Issei ordered, which made the maid nod. Understood, my master. Kurumi then vanished back to the old Satan faction as Issei was left alone. Well, step 1 done. Time to find that holy maiden, Issei said to himself before letting out a sigh. Things are looking to become entertaining in this new era. Time skip. A young girl with blonde hair and green eyes was walking in the park, confused and lost. The girl looked around while holding a large suitcase and failed to notice a bump on the ground. This made her trip and almost fell down, but something caught her. Hey there. Careful now. The blonde girl opened her eyes as she found herself in the arms of a handsome young man with beautiful crimson eyes. I'm sorry, I'm so clumsy, the girl apologized, but Issei just gave a small. Don't worry. You look lost. Do you need to be somewhere? Issei asked, making the girl nod. Yes, I am looking for the church in this town. The girl replied, which made Issei nod. I see. I'll bring you there. But first, what's your name? Issei asked, making the girl smile as she looked at her hero. Asia Argento. May I have yours? Asia answered with a bright smile. Issei Haidu. Pleasure to meet you, Asia. Issei answered with a smile of his own. Let's get you to the church. I happen to know someone there. Issei gestured for Asia to follow him, which she did. Not knowing she was walking straight into her own doom. As Issei guided Asia to the empty church, he made some small talk to not look suspicious. He witnessed her use her sacred gear on some crying monkey on the street and later explained how she got excommunicated from the church for healing a devil. Issei had to hold in the urge to laugh out loud. Being kicked out for her doing her job but not knowing better. Like, talk about being ignorant. After making their way to the church, Issei turned to Asia. I'll go inside and tell my friend that you're here. She is normally the only way in the church today. Wait a moment. Issei ordered as he entered the building. Asia nodded as she patiently waited for Issei to return, which after a minute he did with a large smile on his face. Come inside. Issei held open the door as Asia walked inside of the large church and looked at it with curiosity. It looked much like an ordinary one, but had a bunch of odd ornaments and statues standing around. Kalwarna, who wore a nun's uniform, walked towards them with a smile on her face. You must be Asia. It's a pleasure to see you here. Kalwarna greeted the blonde nun, who smiled as she bowed. It's an honor to have been received by you. Asia thanked, making Kalwarna nod her head. No worries, sister. Today you will work here alongside me. But first, you must do the welcoming ritual. Kalwarna informed, which confused Asia. Welcoming ritual? She asked, confused as Issei started explaining the obvious trap they had placed. Here in Japan, those that want to deepen their relationship with God have to partake in the welcoming ritual, which is a ritual where the person completely submit their body, mind and soul to allow God to welcome you into his embrace and purify you of all your sins. It would also allow you to become forgiven of your past sins. Issei explained, which immediately piqued Asia's interests. It was her goal to repent for her past actions. So without a moment of hesitation she accepted. Please. Allow me to do the ritual. Asia begged, making Issei turn to Kalwarna, who nodded with a smile. Of course. Please wait while I set up the ritual. Issei, sir, would you please assist me? Kalwarna asked, making Issei nod. Of course. I love to help others. Nod, Issei replied as he walked towards the altar as he looked at Kalwarna with a suggestive look. Sister Asia. Please follow me. We have to put you into the appropriate clothing for the ritual. Kalawarna informed as Asia followed her to the back. Yes. Thanks. Asia followed Kalawarna to the back rooms where Issei was left at the altar. A massive grin morphed onto his face as he cracked his neck. Time to go to work. Last time I turned someone into a demon was Kurumi. But that was through my blood and power. I can't do that now, which means I have to use another method to transform them. And I have found the way to do it. Issei thought as he recalled the events long ago where he was the one responsible for Kurumi who was once a human now turned demon like him. Kurumi's transformation happened through transfer of his blood and bit of his power. This made Kurumi the same kind of demon that Issei was. But now that Issei was back to mostly human, that leaves Issei unable to use his blood to transform them. But thanks to Issei finding out about the evil pieces through that stray devil, he found another way to transform them. Through the reincarnation formula that was present in the evil pieces. But Issei tweaked them a bit to suit his desires more. A regular demon would be useless to me. I need to first know what I'm dealing with. Issei thought before creating a very complex magic circle on the altar. He inspected the magic circle before nodding. This ritual spell will allow me to affect her soul and body at the same time. If I understand correctly, the evil piece transfers the demonic energy that was stored by the king and transfer it to the servant, which allows it to alter their biological DNA, while also keeping their original DNA, making some form of hybrid. Issei thought as he saw that Kalawarna was back with Asia, who wore a very transparent gown. The ritual circle is ready. Please lay down on it and close your eyes. Issei introduced as Asia nodded and followed his instructions. Stepping up the altar and laying down on her back. She instinctively held her hands on her stomach together like in a prayer before closing her eyes. This ritual is quite complex. Please don't try to resist it, Asia. Kalawarna informed with a large sadistic smile as she watched Issei stand behind the altar with a smirk of his own. Kalawarna stood by Asia's head and started to say forth a false prayer to calm Asia's nerves. Slowly the ritual spell went into effect as Asia's body was covered in a multicolored aura as the nun felt her whole body was being affected in a weird way. While Asia was laying down, she failed to notice Issei raising his hand towards her. Submit your body and soul to your new god, Asia Argento. He sensed that Asia started to lose conscious as he placed his hand on her head and grinned. Devour. In an instant Asia's body slowly started to morph itself into a small green gem into Issei's hand. Naive fool. Issei said as he looked at the green gem before swallowing it into his mouth. Letting out a sigh, Issei looked back at the magic circle and aimed his hand towards it. Kalawarna looked confused. My lord, what are you exactly doing? She asked. This magic circle is a special made reincarnation spell that I created. But before I can use it, I needed to record Asia's body and soul into my own body. After that I can summon her soul from my body and give her a new body, since her old one was utterly useless. Now I'm deconstructing Asia's original body in my stomach and reconstructing it at the same time. Now I'm also tampering with the girl's memories. Her whole life I altered any important memory she might have. Her love for God and the church has turned into nothing but pure hatred thanks to her unjustified excommunication. And now she believes I'm her new god. Well, it isn't wrong to be fair. But still hilarious how easy it is to fuck with someone's life. It's ready. Issei stated as from his hand a blacking aura erupted as slowly the new body of Asia Argento was placed on the altar. Kalawarna immediately noticed that the body was changed to match her master's desires more. It was taller by a couple of inches as well. Also the hair became an ash-white color compared to the original sun-kissed blonde hair. Also her assets have gone up a bunch of sizes, being at least a decent C cup. Now time to place her soul into her new body. Issei grinned as from his hand a greenish sphere flew from his hand towards Asia's new body and slowly entered it. And lastly, the reincarnation spell. Issei said as he activated the magic circle on the altar and Asia's body was surrounded by a green blacking aura. After a moment the aura died down as Asia slowly opened her eyes, revealing a pair of golden eyes with vertical slit similar to that of a dragon's. Welcome back to the land of the living, my Asia. Issei greeted the former nun, who blinked before smiling at him and stepping off the altar before bowing. It's an honor to meet you, my lord. Thank you for learning me my place. Asia said with conviction, which surprised Kalawarna. The voice was the same, but the tone from the shy girl was gone completely. Good. Now listen here. You aren't a human anymore. You're a demon like what I used to be and soon will be again in the near future. I have given you a lot of abilities and potential to become useful to me. If you fail to meet my expectations, I devour you again, understood? Issei asked while pressing his foot onto Asia's head. Yes, my lord. I'll do my best to meet your expectations. Asia replied with determination, making Issei nod. Good. Also, when I devoured you, you lost your sacred gear. It has something to do with the system of that fool Elohim. But not, it was very useful in the first place. Here, stand up. Issei ordered as he removed his foot from her head as Asia immediately stood back up as he commanded. Issei closed his eyes and concentrating his energy a bit. Issei then revealed his hand showing a pair of rings. Issei then grabbed Asia by her shoulder and shoved the rings into her body. Asia had to resist a moan as her body felt her body being covered in a black and green aura before it died down. Take these as my gift to you. They are made to store souls inside of to use them to enhance your magic in any way. I've already put the souls of my parents and Rainer into them. But you will have to steal more souls to further its effects. Issei advised making Asia nod her head in understanding. I understand. Thank you for this gift. Asia thanked making Issei nod before thinking. I have to you both myself since Kurumi will be busy for the time being. Also Kalawarna. You're next. But I'm just going to change your body since you're already loyal to me. Issei informed which made the fallen angel nod. Issei walked over to her and placed her hand on her shoulder. Devour. Kalawarna was then turned into a dark purple gem which Issei swallowed as well. After a moment Issei held out his hand towards the altar where he created another magic circle similar to the one be used on Asia. And summoned Kalawarna's body from it. Compared to Asia, Kalawarna stayed mostly the same. He then also summoned her soul as well and activated the spell as Kalawarna was reincarnated as well into a demon. Kalawarna soon woke up as she stood up and immediately kneeled for her master. Good. Now that's done with, here is the plan. Since both of you are now demons with both having different specialities and abilities that I decided for you. I will personally train you for the time being. I figure out a secluded place for you to train and this church will be used as my base. Disappoint me in any way and I'll dispose of you without a second thought, understood? Both girls immediately nodded. Yes my lord. Both girls replied in unison as Issei grinned. Good. Now time for both of you to offer your bodies to me. Issei declared as both girls happily obliged into serving their master with their body in the abandoned church. The day after Issei had transformed Kalawarna and Asia into demons. Issei decided to finally meet up with the devils. It was a school day, but he intentionally decided to be late so these monkeys wouldn't bother him too much. He left Kalawarna and Asia in the church after placing a barrier to protect them. After entering the school building and using the auras of the devils, Issei found his way to the student council. Not even willing to knock, Issei opened the door and looked around. Only the student council president, who was shocked to see him, was present. Sup water bat. Issei addresses Sona as he closed the door behind him and walked over to her desk without a care in the world. Issei, hi do. How are you alive? Sona asked confused. I came back from the dead. Anyway, we have to talk about. Issei sat down and crossed his legs. The aura he gave off was a total 180 of what the pervert used to be. Also the big problem was that how on hell was he back alive? From Rias reports, Issei was killed by the fallen angel after she seduced him to go on a date with him. Okay, Sona took a second to regain her bearing as she pushed up her glasses before looking at Issei. What do you wish to talk about? Her question was answered by Issei pulling out of the piece of paper that had the Gremory family crest on it. Sona immediately recognized this and already got a feeling of what he was going to say. When I went on my date with that crow, a familiar gave this to me. I assume you already know what is going on here. That red-haired bat wanted to use the summoning circle to come close to me after I was killed. And then enslave me with that piece of crystal you uses to reincarnate others into devils. Issei explained before letting out a grin. Girl was lucky that I didn't accidentally summon her there. Or else she would have met a very early death. Issei's words shocked the Sitri heiress. It sounded so sinister and malicious. Like there was no way that this Issei was the same as the pervert from before. Also the glowing crimson eyes were also a dead giveaway. I see. But that normally would be the case for Issei Haidu. But who are you then, stranger? Sona asked seriously with a bit of her aura leaking. Issei's grin didn't falter as he let out a portion of his own aura which immediately dominated Sona's. But he kept it in check so that only she could sense it. Not bad girl. But would you believe me that I'm actually also Issei Haidu? He asked, making Sona look confused before asking. As in an Issei Haidu from early Japan. I've read once about Japan's history that there existed a Haidu clan around 1500 years ago. Would you mean you are someone of that family of that time? She asked while trying not to show her obvious fear. Issei blinked as he didn't expect her to figure it out that easily. Issei couldn't help but let out actual laughter. Haha, you know your stuff, girl. Yes, I'm someone from that era reincarnated in my own descendant. Issei admitted before resting his head on his fist. Then answer me this. Are you aware of the demon known as Akuma? Issei asked, making Sona slowly look even more serious as she nodded. Yes, demon god Akuma, better known as Demon King of the Far East. The demon that single-handedly nearly destroyed all of Japan and the entire Shinto heaven. His corpse and weapons are what shields Japan from threats from the outside. However, the corpse part that protected Kuo almost 2 decades ago has been stolen by someone of the old Satan faction. Sona answered, making Issei whistle as the girl knew her stuff quite well. Damn girl. How about you write my autobiography right now while you at it? Issei joked as Sona's body became tense. Was this man in front of him really the demon king that dominated the entire Shinto pantheon by himself? It suited crazy, but her instincts were telling her that this man had the arrogance of a king and the presence of a conqueror. Her mind slowly gave in to the thought as Issei grinned at her pale face. Why, you are really him? She asked with a quivering voice as Issei let out a loud sadistic laughter. Do you want to destroy this school with everybody in it to prove it? He asked while raising a finger that showed a small ball of demonic energy. No. Please don't. I understand you are the demon king of the east, but what are you doing here, revealing this to me? She asked nervously as Issei toyed with the small demonic sphere that can easily blow up the entire school of the map. Getting to know the people in charge of this town. I know you and the redhead are calling the shots here. Also, you two are related to the current kings of hell, right? It makes more sense to make use of you rather than kill you off. Issei nonchalantly replied, making Sona nervous at the casual mention that he would kill her and Rias, knowing the consequences of their siblings hunting him down. Sona let out a sigh to calm her nerves. Are you saying you want to strike a deal with me? She asked, making Issei chuckle before shrugging. You're assuming too much, girl. If I want something, I'll take it with force. It's more of finding something that might prove useful to me in the future when I restart my conquest. Issei replied, making Sona narrow her eyes before realizing something. You want me to stay quiet about your return? You could have easily hidden away, but you needed to show yourself around us for some reason, which leaves you having no other choice than to explain yourself to one of us. And most likely you want me to enter some form of contract to prevent me or Rias to report you to our older siblings. Sona theorized as Issei gave her an actual interested look. You're more clever than I expected. Yes, you're right. I need to be in the open for a bit, but you noisy devils will start asking questions. So here I came to you, the one that thinks before they act. And came to offer you a deal. It's called a binding vow, which is the old way of making deals with a devil. Now what I want is you for me to hide my actions and my true identity from anyone, and nobody is allowed to know until I give express permission. In return for that, I will give you a favor that you cash in at any time. Issei offered, making Sona think for a moment. This was a risky making a deal with a demon that the original Satans feared. Sona, however, felt that she might get something good out of this and raised her hand, showing 3 fingers. 3 favors. And then I'll accept your conditions. Sona stated, which made Issei's brow ache in annoyance. However, he did like that this girl had the balls to challenge him like that. Fine. I accept those conditions. Issei accepted as the two felt a shift in their body as the binding vow has been created. Standing up, Issei started walking out of the room, but before leaving he turned to her. Don't worry, I won't destroy your little school for now. I'm busy with my own plans. Also, when the red-haired bat asks questions, tell her that I'm someone she should avoid at all cost. And if she doesn't listen, then I'll beat her up badly that she'll have to learn. But I won't kill her or any of her slaves. But that Issei left the student council and walked through the halls of the school unbothered. He walked past a few classes and was about to walk down some stairs until a voice called out to him. And where do you think you're going? Issei cursed his luck as he looked to the side and saw Rias Gremory standing there high and mighty on the top of the stairs. Home. Issei answered unbothered as he stepped down and was about to leave, but his path was blocked by Akeno. Ara. Not so fast there, cut, Akeno teased as Issei had to urge to vomit. At lost. Issei's words made Akeno suddenly move her body without her even realizing, which surprised the queen as she turned to Issei. Stop. We just want to talk. Ria's voice called out, making Issei annoyed. He turned to the pair of girls and gave an annoyed look. What do you want? I'm a busy man. Issei asked, annoyed as his urge to decapitate them was insanely high. What are you doing here, Haidu? You should have been dead. Rias asked seriously, which made Issei just raise an eyebrow at her. And how would you know that, huh, princess? Did you have anything to do with my little date with my dinner? Issei asked, which confused as to why he referred to Rainer as dinner. But both looked serious as Rias showed a bit of sweat. Issei, however, was done with the small talk and decided to punish these girls for annoying him. For messing with my life like that. You both should be punished. But the snap of his fingers, Rias and Akeno's clothes were suddenly torn off their bodies, leaving them butt naked in the middle of the school, as both girls immediately covered themselves and tried to either teleport away or summon some clothes. Yeah, I kinda placed an anti-magic curse onto you both for the next hour. So better start running as you don't want anybody to see you, right? Issei asked with a sadistic grin before turning to the fire alarm of the school and aiming his finger like a gun. And in a moment the device shattered as the alarms around the school started blaring loudly.
Both Rias and Akeno widened their eyes in horror before running off to somewhere, but it was too late as someone without a doubt has already saw the two girls butt naked running away. Well, that's handled. These girls won't bother me again, Issei said happily as he teleported away, not realizing that someone had seen him leave through a magic circle. After Issei's little prank on Rias and Akeno, he returned back to his church as Calawarna and Asia were both in meditating positions with their aura surrounding them. Both were extremely heavily focused as they failed to notice Issei's arrival, who watched with a passive look. Asia is the one with more potential thanks to her natural talent in magic. Calawarna, however, seemed to be more of a close-range fighter. Both are getting close in the hang of their demonic energy control, Issei thought as he left the pair alone as he arrived at the roof of the church and laid down. I guess I've to find other potential servants. That Sona girl was a high-ranking devil with a talent in water magic, perhaps she would make a fine addition. But I have to break her loyalties with her faction. This might be tricky, Issei muttered to himself before grinning. That what makes it interesting. Issei closed his eyes as he suddenly sensed someone teleporting next to him. Hello, Kurumi. Issei didn't have to open his eyes to know that it was his loyal maid who had visited him. My master. I've brought news regarding the old Satan faction. They are preparing their troops to steal your body parts. If things go smoothly, they will have at least 5 of the remaining 14 that are left, Kurumi informed as she kneeled beside him. Issei opened his eyes before looking back at her. That's good. Let these fools obtain my parts so they can it for themselves. In the end, I'll take them back from them one way or the other. I guess you convinced them to hunt down the parts with the most power, so you can steal the weaker parts while at the same time drawing attention to them, Issei assumed, making Kurumi nod. Yes. The old Satan faction desire to use the stronger parts of your corpse. So that leaves the weaker parts where I will take the chance to steal them back. I've marked every location and have already set teleportation marks, Kurumi agreed, making Issei smirk. Always so ahead. That's why you always will be my favorite. I assume you're also here to tell me I've to dispel the barriers, Issei asked, which Kurumi nodded to while trying to hide her obvious happy smile. Soon. I'll call you tomorrow when the time is right, Kurumi informed before wondering something. But while I will be able to obtain a couple of parts, there is a good chance that I won't be able to get every one of them. How should we handle that? Kurumi asked as Issei just shrugged his shoulders. The moment I dispel the barriers and break the seals, all kind of evil spirits and yaokais will try and obtain my parts. It's like a treasure for them that they could use to become stronger. Honestly, let them have it. It would cause for more chaos and will pull the attention away from me for the time being. I'm very certain that the Shinto gods are already heavily guarded with the first part being stolen, Issei theorized as Kurumi nodded. Indeed, they have heavily increased security after I stole the part here in Kuo, Kurumi agreed. Then I'll tell the old Satan faction that we are almost ready. I'll call you when it's time. See you soon, my master. Kurumi then vanished as Issei gave a small sigh. Good. Things are speeding up nicely. Issei then closed his eyes again as he took a nap. After waking up, Issei let out a yawn before entering the church. Calawarna and Asia had moved on from meditating to sparring with Calawarna, using a demonic energy lance to try and stab Asia, who was defending herself with magic. Issei looked at them for a moment before thinking about something. Both of them are decent in their respective fields, but I need also a strategist. Sona seems like a smart girl. Not to mention I can tell her that she has something hidden behind her facade, Issei thought, before leaving unnoticed by the sparring partners. And perhaps I can draw that talent out when her guard is dropped, Issei mused as he decided to hunt down some random stray devils that were in the area since he was bored. The next day, Issei had arrived back at school. He still hasn't gotten the call from Kurumi to deactivate the barriers, so Issei was off wondering what to do. Since nothing really interested him apart from the Sitri devil, Issei decided to go visit her, and luckily she was again alone in her room. Entering the room without knocking, Sona looked shocked for a moment before composing herself and sitting back down. Hello, Issei. What can I help you with? She asked formally as Issei laid down in the couch in her room. Just a bit bored. There isn't a lot to do for the moment. So I came here to chat with you, Issei replied, surprising Sona, who just accepted that what Issei wanted, since she was in no way had the authority to send him away. Fine. What do you wish to talk about? Sona asked curiously as she put her documents down and walked over and sat down on the other couch next to Issei's. Well, what a devil like you is doing in Japan. From what I understood, devils look down on humans and see them themselves as superior. So why are you here attending a school of all places? Issei asked, making Sona let out a sigh. Well, it was mostly Rias who demanded that we went to Japan, since she is very interested in Japanese culture and whatnot. The reason why I'm here is to learn about human education, Sona answered, which made Issei raise an eyebrow. For what reason would you want to do that? He asked as Sona had a distant look on her face. My dream is to open up a raiding game school in the underworld for the lower class citizens, Sona answered without looking Issei in the eyes. Issei however could see something else within Sona. Is that really your dream? Issei asked, making Sona look surprised as she nodded. Of course. Why would I lie about that? She asked, confused, as Issei sat up and gave a smirk. Is it because you gave up on something else? Like your original dream? Issei asked with a knowing smirk, as Sona grew a bit nervous as she failed to look Issei in the eyes. And no, my dreams were always to help. Sona stopped as Issei suddenly appeared by her side and made her look at him with his hand grasping her chin. To surpass the people around you, right? I can tell you have this aura of longing and desire. When I first met you yesterday, it confused me, but after realizing who you are, it started to make sense. You're the younger sister of the current Devil King Leviathan, who is also the strongest female devil alive. This means that you automatically were placed in her shadow the moment of your birth. Also, people look at your friend Rias Gremory, who obvious is more eye candy out of you too. Which leaves you again in someone else's shadow. I guess you wanted to be like your sister, but the gap between you two is immense, and even against others of your generation like Rias, you failed to stack up to them. Am I wrong? Issei's words were slowly invading Sona's mind, who started to remember her childhood of being always in someone else's shadow. From her older sister to her childhood friend. She always was forgotten by everyone. Apart from the Sitri name, she was nothing and always would have been. She once had the dream to become someone even greater than her sister and show that she was simply more than the heiress of the Sitri clan. But slowly when she grew older, that dream faded away. So that's why Sona tried to do something out of the norm to somewhat gain attention and rise in popularity. However, slowly Sona started to realize that her goal of opening a raiding game school will probably never meet the light of day. Sona couldn't help but slowly clench her fists in anger as those old memories of her past started to haunt her. Turning back to Issei, she gave him a glare as her violet eyes started glowing. Yes, I wanted to become someone greater than my older sister. I wanted to become stronger and better than Rias, but I failed. I can't seem to understand why I can't grow stronger, Sona muttered as Issei looked at her eyes for a moment before smirking. Because you gave up on your hunger for power when you wanted to start that stupid school. You wish to surpass your sister, right? Then you should go and train like no other, fight and learn through battles and devour anybody who dares stand in your way. Destroy your enemies and let those who observe quiver in fear at your might. That is what I did back in the day, and look at me. I'm a demon that successfully had dominated the entire Shinto pantheon. If it wasn't for some bullshit move. To gain unlimited power, you should drown anybody and anything in your path. Your family, your friends, your clan and even your peerage. They will only stand in your way if you wish to become the version you dreamt of being. You will need to leave everything behind. Issei's words lingered in Sona's head as Issei stood back up and slowly started walking towards the desk where a picture of Sona with her family was placed. Picking it up, he turned to her with a smirk. Or else you stay like you know and stay being a poor copy of your sister, a slave to your family, and a shadow to Rias Gremory. Issei placed the picture back on the desk as he was about to leave. But Sona called out to him. Are you telling me that you're able to help me achieve to become the person I want to be? Sona asked with hope. The darkness that had invaded her mind slowly started to devour her logical side and any resistance against the Demon King. Yes, I can. I can make you someone that will make your sister envious of. However, if you wish my help, you will need to drown everyone and everything. Issei replied as Sona nodded before nodding and standing up with a determined look. I'll do it. I'll cash in one of my favors. Help me turn into the person I desire to become. Sona ordered as Issei grinned before nodding. Good. Come to the abandoned church later tonight alone. Issei informed before turning around to leave. There is no going back when you take this path, Sona. Remember that. But that Issei left, leaving Sona alone, who thought about her actions just now. She looked down as she thought about making such a risky deal. But inside, her inner devil who wanted to become someone her older sister would be envious of. It slowly made her realize that Issei was right. She will stay in her shadow if she doesn't go after her dreams. Looking up, her eyes glowing with determination. Sona nodded to herself. I will succeed. After an uneventful day, Issei finally received the call from Kurumi. So it's time? Issei asked, making the maid on the other side of the call nod. Yes, master, they are ready for the barriers to disappear. Kurumi answered, which made Issei nod. Good. Let chaos run free, Issei muttered as he closed the call before making an hand sign with both hands and focusing his energy. After a moment, a massive shift in energy erupted as everybody suddenly felt pure malice course through the entirety of Japan and other countries nearby. Issei had dispelled all the barriers that protected Japan by making the seal that was using his parts and weapons go into overdrive. Which was possible with each piece containing his soul, allowing him to remotely control them from a distance. Issei could feel chaos erupting in Japan.
Mostly spirits and yakes who were affected by his power were turned into evil spirits that started to rampage through the lands. These gods will have a good time cleaning them up. Issei laughed to himself as apart from Kuo, who was pretty safe compared to the more populated cities like Tokyo and Kyoto, who most likely have already turned to a war zone. Issei was basking in the feeling of chaos coursing through the entirety of Japan. Feels like the old times, Issei said out loud while watching the blue sky slowly becoming more cloudy with dark clouds. It appears that Susanoo is angry. Issei watched as it soon started raining harshly with a ton of thunder as well. Issei, despite not being able to see them, his senses were telling him that many gods have descended to stop the crisis he just created. It stayed like this for the next hour before a green magic circle appeared as Kurumi came out of it. "Greetings, my lord. I've brought you 4 of your parts," Kurumi greeted while kneeling down. Issei sat back up with a grin as Kurumi presented what looked to be body parts of a decaying corpse. He took the corpse parts into his hands and inspecting them. "Good. I assume the old Satan faction have the 5 containing most of my power?" Issei asked, making Kurumi nod in agreement. "Yes, all the old Satan faction leaders and Rizavum and Euclid Lucifuge possesses the more powerful parts. What should be our next step going forwards?" Kurumi asked, making Issei smirk. "Let these fools kill themselves. Now that the old Satan faction will be blamed for the sudden chaos in Japan, everybody will focus their attention on them. Even with my parts, they will eventually die, so let them kill themselves. I'm currently working on making some useful servants here in Kuo," Issei answered, which confused Kurumi. "You've taken in new servants?" she asked with a hint of jealousy, which Issei immediately sensed. He stood up and walked over the kneeling maid and lifted her chin up. "They will never replace you, Kurumi. They are more like test project. They are sacrificial pawns I can use to my advantage, as well as seeing what I can make of those with potential. If they fail to meet my expectations, I'll dispose of them like a chef throws away spoiled ingredients," Issei assured, which made the maid smile genuinely with a blush. "Thank you, Master," Kurumi thanked at being placed in such high regards by a being that couldn't care less about anybody else. "But for now I need you to guide these fools into their own death. Let them believe that they have victory in their hands, and when they decide to attack, I'll be the one to take my parts back," Issei ordered as Kurumi nodded with a blushing smile. "As you desire, my lord." Kurumi then teleported away as Issei looked at parts before thinking. "Well, this should be interesting," Issei mused before opening his mouth and swallowing 3 of the 4 parts. He kept one in his possession as he wanted to test things out before consuming it. "Well, Sona should arrive in a few hours. This should be interesting," Issei mused to himself with a wicked grin. Time skip. It was the middle of the night as Sona had arrived at the abandoned church. The Sitri heiress let out a sigh. "Here goes nothing. There is no coming back from this." Sona then knocked on the door. After a minute the door opened, revealing Kalawarna. "Hello, Lady Sitri. Master Issei has been expecting you. Please follow me." Kalawarna greeted with a formal bow as she let Sona inside. Kalawarna guided Sona through the strange church. Like it was strange combination of an actual church and a Satan cult. With statues of a very demonic figure that Sona didn't recognize, as well with a ton of altars and worshipping areas. Sona followed Kalawarna as they passed by Asia, who was by an altar where an old human man was laying on. Sona watched as Asia held out her hands above the man as a green aura started to come out of the man's body. After a few seconds, the man's body grew old and decayed in seconds, which surprised Sona as Asia smiled before letting the body on fire with magic. Kalawarna noticed Sona's shock as she explained what was happening. "This church has turned to pray and worship the demon god Akuma, but you already know that our master's real name is Issei Haidu. This church is also used as a sacrificial place for us to obtain bodies and soul for our master to devour. Come, we will enter the dungeon where he is waiting for you." As Kalawarna went down the stairs, a large steel door stood in front of them. Kalawarna opened the door as she turned to Sona. "Please go inside. Master Issei is waiting for you." Sona nodded as she entered the dark room. Kalawarna immediately closed the door behind her. Sona, however, didn't look phased as she kept walking forwards, as soon the room was filled with torches, revealing Issei sitting on a black and red throne. "Hello, Sona. So you've decided to let your old life behind?" Issei asked as he stood up. Sona nodded as she gave Issei a serious look. "Yes. I'm more than ready to become stronger," Sona said, determined. Issei liked her determination as he snapped his fingers as a barrier around them was placed. Sona felt something familiar from the magic coming from the barrier. "Time manipulation?" she asked, making Issei nod. "Indeed. You wish to become stronger, yes? Well, training you will take a while. So that's why I'm using this. This barrier turns 1 day in this barrier equivalent to 1 hour in real time. So each day you will spend your night training here. That will be around 7 to 8 days worth of training with only 1 night being spent," Issei explained as Sona's eyes widened. Such a drastic opportunity to train 7 to 8 days worth of training in one night pretty much allows her to gain much more experience in a very short time period. So what are we training for tonight? Sona asked as Issei simply shrugged. The very basics. So let's start with you, Sona. You're part of the Sitri clan, that means you have a natural talent over the element of water. But something is off, or you perhaps also part of another clan? Issei asked curiously as he created a seat for Sona and himself to sit on in the middle of the dungeon. Sona sat down before nodding. Yes, my father is the head of the Sitri clan. But my mother was actually from the Valifer clan before they became extinct. My mother and older sister are also members, but I've a deeper connection to my mother's clan than my sister. They symbolize the symbol of the snake. However, back in the Civil War, the Valifer clan allied themselves with the old Satan faction and became extinct as a result. However, my mother, who was already married to my father and became a Sitri, stayed with the Sitri clan and was able to hide any record of her being affiliated with the Valifer clan. My sister didn't have any connection with the clan power-wise. But I do. I've obtained the very rare power within the Valifer clan, which is known as the Snake Eyes, but my mother had sealed them away for my entire life because I will be treated with hostility even more if I revealed my eyes. Sona revealed before letting out a sigh. Issei looked curious as he leaned forward so he could see into Sona's eyes. And I assume you can't access that power because they are sealed away? He asked, making Sona nod. Damn, even with that blessing, your family still finds a way to hold you back. Well, I can easily break that seal if you allow me. Issei offered, which made Sona nod immediately. Yes, please. I always wanted to able to use my eyes. Sona pleaded as Issei just nodded. He could have asked for another favor. But that would clash with the favor she had cashed in beforehand. And even he can't break a binding vow, no matter how powerful he becomes. Bringing his hand towards her head as Sona closed her eyes. He softly pressed his index finger right on her forehead and focusing his magic a bit. Devour. Immediately Issei absorbed the seal placed within Sona's mind that was blocking her other demonic power. Soon a violet aura surrounded her as Sona opened her eyes, showing that her violet eyes stayed the same color. But like Issei, her eyes showed a more vertical slit pupils. Everything alright? Issei asked as Sona blinked a few times as she looked around. After a few moments, she smiled as she turned to Issei. I can see much clearer now. I've read in the history of the snake eyes. They are a pair of demonic eyes that allows the user to see the flow of magical energy within anything and read magical sequences with a much higher precision. My grandfather, the father of my mother, was the last wielder of the snake eyes before me. He was actually the head of magical academics for high-ranking devils before the Civil War. Sona informed as Issei nodded as his interest is piqued. Much higher precision. That means she is more capable of learning high-level magic. Perhaps even learning to use holy energy. There are very few devils that can use the holy element, since I requires much higher level of demonic energy control. It's a gamble, but I'm willing to risk it. Issei thought to himself before nodding. Interesting, we will start with the basics of learning demonic energy control. Afterwards I'll help you master your power over water to a degree you don't have to even use a magic circle for it. That would do it for this night. Issei explained as Sona nodded. Issei snapped his fingers as the seats disappeared as the dungeon showed a bunch of training dummies, punching bags and magic crystal. Issei turned back to Sona with a large wolfish grin. Hope you're ready for hell, Sona. Because you're not going to be standing after tonight, haha. Sona gulped at the lingering threat, but she swallowed her saliva before looking determined. I'm ready. Sona assured as her training hour began. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching and supporting us. See you in the next part.